I said 2 o'clock. I said 2 o'clock. And it's 2 o'clock. I did it. I said to rush it around. I things to do because I got the show. I have a show tomorrow. It's craziness. I have a show tomorrow. Are you there? I'll wait because I know you kids will log on in a minute. There they are. Bing, bing. It's adorable. It's like I'm in Peter Pan and the little fairies are arriving one by one. Ding, ding. There they are. Hi, you guys. So I have my tin cup of milk. My book. I have treats. I'm so happy. Thematic treats again. Hi, Bill. Yes, yay. So today is it's the 15th. It is May 15th. And what is May 15th? May 15th. Oh, what a lovely day, May 15th. It is Peace Officers Memorial Day for our fallen officers. We like that very much. It is National Nylon Stocking Day. Does anybody wear nylon stockings still? I like stockings because I have really pale, scrabbly little legs, and so when I do bear them, I totally wear the stockings. So I don't know, but I'm an old lady. Endangered Species Day. Oh, that's important. Defense Transportation Day. Oh, it's Pizza Party Day. Maybe tonight that'll be a thing. National Bike to Work Day. That's very good. I know people who bike to work, and it's very good for you. They enjoy that. NASCAR Day. Ooh, yes, third Friday of May. But I am excited because today is National Chocolate Chip Day. Who knew? No idea. And so I said, I will have to make chocolate chip cookies. I was running around. I had all these things to do, and then I had to go, oh my God, the cookies. So I did. Now, we've had cornbread here. I've had the cornbread, and I made that from scratch. The recipe in the back of the box. I did use a thing for, what the heck did I have? I had I make stuff, and sometimes I use a mixy thing, and sometimes I don't. So I had those. I did the molasses snow thing. Biscuits. The biscuits was a mix, but I still had to add butter and milk and do the thing and roll them out and cut them and do biscuit things. But today, scratch. 100% from scratch. Flour, baking soda, salt, sugar, white sugar, brown sugar, eggs, and chocolate chips. Yes, I did. I made chocolate chip cookies 100% from scratch. You get the Toll House morsels in the supermarket. Bob picked them up on the way home. And you read the recipe on the back of the box, a little package, and it tells you exactly what to do. And you need 2 eggs, and you need some flour, and you need baking soda, and you need a little bit of vanilla, and you need brown sugar and white sugar. My brown sugar was like rock hard, like solidified. But by golly, I did it. And then once they go in the oven, it's like that. It says 10 minutes. It's like 8. So there they are. Boom. I made chocolate chip cookies. And so I have, indeed, milk and cookies. I am so happy. Oh. And did they come out good? Oh, gee. Let's find out. Like I haven't already eaten like 8 of them. Somebody churn butter. I should churn butter on the show. That was a little soft. Oh, here, this one's crunchier. I like them a little bite. All right. I know. I am now fortified. I make a good cookie. I've always made a good cookie. Oh, these are good cookies. Alrighty. So, we're still there. So finally, this thing, they're going west. They were at the shanty town. They went and picked up some laundry. Laura and her friend went berserk riding ponies. They went and ran into her friend's mom, who went, oh yeah, she got married yesterday, and hadn't like invited anyone or mentioned it to anybody because she married off her 13-year-old daughter to some grown man. And Laura and her friend were completely and appropriately horrified. Even in the 1800s, they're like, she's like my age. Ugh. They were like, ew, gross. So, yes, so now they're leaving. They're leaving, gone, breaking down the tents. The West begins. Early next morning, they were all in the wagon again. Yay! It had not been unloaded, so everything was ready to go. Nothing was left of the camp but Aunt Dosha's shanty. Over the worn-out grass and the dead spots where shanties had been, surveyors... I'm going to move my table. It's closer. Oh, that's so much better. Hi there. Surveyors had shown up. They were measuring and driving stakes for a new town that would be built. "We'll be along as soon as Hi gets his business settled," Aunt Dosha said. "I'll see you at Silver Lake," Lena called to Laura, while Pa chirruped to the horses and the wheels began to turn. Trip, trip, trip. The sun shone brightly on the uncovered wagon, but the wind was cool and riding was pleasant. Here and there, men were working in their fields, and now and then a team of wagons passed. So, they're riding uncovered, which is a little hot, but it's like a convertible. She kind of likes it. Soon the road curved downward through rolling land, and Pa said, the Big Sioux River's ahead. Laura began to see out loud for Mary. She's been doing this for a couple chapters. Mary went blind, like on page 3. So Laura's been saying, "Look, Mary, he's in a blue suit, and there's a mountain," and she's like doing this thing. So this is like a running thing for Mary. It's very nice. I got to get my bonnet up, because what's great is if your hair is like flying away, you just go, "Oh, look, I have a bonnet." It solves all hair problems. But I just got hot rollers. I'm going to do the hot rollers. It's great. Okay. Awesome. So she says to Mary, "The road's going down a low bank to the river, but there aren't any trees. There's just the big sky and grassy land and the little low creek. It's a big river sometimes, but now it's dried up till it's no bigger than Plum Creek. It trickles along from pool to pool by dry gravel stretches and cracked dry mud flats. Now the horses are stopping to drink." "Drink hearty," Pa said to the horses. "There's no more water for 30 miles. Beyond the low river, the grassy land was low curve behind curve, and the road looked like a short hook. The road pushes against the grassy land and breaks off short, and that's the end of it," said Laura. "It can't be," Mary objected. "The road goes all the way to Silver Lake." "I know it does," Laura answered. Okay, Mary, going blind has not improved Mary's personality. I just saying. Tisk, tisk, tisk. "Well, then I don't think you ought to say things like that," Mary told her gently. "We should always be careful to say exactly what we mean." "I was saying what I meant," Laura protested, but she could not explain. There were so many ways of seeing things and so many ways of saying them. Beyond the Big Sioux, there were no more fields, no houses, no people in sight. There really was no road, only a dim wagon trail and no railroad grade. Here and there, Laura glimpsed a little wooden stake almost hidden in the grasses. Pa said they were surveyor stakes for the railroad grade that was not started yet. See, the railroad's coming through, hence the railroad camp, and that camp they were in was just little shanties and tents, and they took it all out, but they're driving it because now that will be like a stop on the railroad. There'll probably be like a post office and things. So this whole area, the railroad's coming, they're literally building towns and cities as they go. So very cool, very cool. So they're in on the ground floor on this stuff. Laura said to Mary, "This prairie is like an enormous meadow, stretching far away at every direction to the very edge of the world." Well, that's sort of the definition of a prairie, but yeah. The endless waves of flowery grasses under the cloudless sky gave her a queer feeling. She could not say how she felt. All of them in the wagon, and the wagon and the team, and even Pa seemed small. All morning, Pa drove steadily along the dim wagon track, and nothing changed. The farther they went into the west, the smaller they seemed, and the less they seemed to be going anywhere. The wind blew the grass always with the same endless rippling. The horses' feet and the wheels going over the grass made always the same sound. The jiggling of the board seat was always the same jiggling. Laura thought they might go on forever, yet always be in this same changeless place that would not even know they were there. Well, that's true. The landscape, it just does not change much on the prairie, and it can get a little dull. Only the sun moved, without ever seeming to. The sun moved steadily upward in the sky. When it was overhead, they stopped to feed the horses and to eat a picnic lunch on the clean grass. It was good to rest on the ground after riding all that morning. Laura thought of the many times they had eaten under the sky while they were traveling all the way from Wisconsin to Indian Territory and back again to Minnesota. That's terrible. They went back again to Minnesota. She said back again to Minnesota. So, yes, they were in Wisconsin, and then they went out to Indian Territory, and then they went to Walnut Grove, Minnesota, and now they're going to South Dakota. But back again to Minnesota. So there was they went several places 2 and 3 times. So she was circling back, and she didn't even mention there was another town they went to in between here. Now they were in Dakota Territory, going farther west. But this was different from all the other times, not only because there was no cover on the wagon and no beds in it, but some other reason. Laura couldn't say how, but this prairie was different. Pa, she asked, when you find the homestead, will it be like the one we had in Indian Territory? I'm scooting up forward here. I'm so terrible. Pa thought about it before he answered. No, he said finally. This is different country. I can't tell you how exactly. Oh, yes, same thing. He can't tell how they just said that. She can't tell how it's different. And then he says, no, this is a different country. I can't tell you how exactly, but this prairie is different. It feels different. See, he noticed it too. And they're in South Dakota. And I don't know, I've been to South Dakota and Wisconsin, Minnesota, and I guess, yes, they're sort of different, but I don't know why they're that different, because I know I'm from LA. They weren't that different. Prairie's prairie. But he knows it's different. That's likely enough, Ma said sensibly. We're west of Minnesota and north of Indian Territory, so naturally the flowers and the grasses are not the same. But that was not what Pa and Laura meant. There was really almost no difference in the flowers and the grasses, but there was something else here that was not anywhere else. They're getting mysterious on me here. It was an enormous stillness that made you feel still. And when you were still, you could feel great stillness coming closer. What? All right. All the little sounds of the blowing grasses and of the horses munching and whooshing in their feed box at the back of the wagon, and even the sounds of eating and talking, could not touch the enormous silence of this prairie. Pa talked about his new job. He would be the company storekeeper and the timekeeper at Silver Lake Camp. He would run the store, and he would keep straight in his books the charge account of every man on the job and know exactly how much money was due each man for his work after his board bill and his account at the store had been subtracted. And when the paymaster brought the money each payday, Pa would pay every man. That was all he had to do, and for that, he would be paid $50 every month. Payroll! Pa's doing payroll! Has everybody out there done payroll? We've all had a gig where we did payroll, right? Payroll. Well, he's doing payroll. And, we mentioned before that, remember Uncle Hi said, oh, we owe money. Joshua was saying, we owe money. Uncle Hi owes the money. He's like, no, it's great. So, oh, no, he's gotten any money from this. Oh, my soul to the company still. I was talking about that. Every man has an account. They're board. So they're working there, but they're paying rent. They're charging them rent and board. And anything they get at the store, of course, they have to pay for that. And their only pay is their get. So they're just taking it out of their paycheck. Oh, just get your groceries. We'll take it out of your paycheck. Oh, you can stay here, but we'll take it out of your paycheck. And they miraculously always managed to charge more than they were going to pay them. That's why coal miners, people work on railroads, things did not go well, because yikes. But wait, he's the paymaster, so maybe he's not going to get stiffed here. This could be good. And best of all, Caroline, we're among the very first out here, said Pa. We've got the pick of the land for our homestead. By George, our luck's turned at last. Well, it's about time, because things have been terrible. First chance at new land and $50 a month for a whole summer to boot. It is wonderful, Charles, said Ma. But all their talking did not mean anything to the enormous silence of that prairie. All that afternoon they went on mile after mile, never seeing a house or any sign of people, never seeing anything but grass and sky. The trail they followed was marked only by bent and broken grass. Laura saw old Indian trails and buffalo paths, worn deep in the ground and now grassed over. She saw strange, large depressions, straight-sided and flat-bottomed, that had been buffalo wallows. And now the grass was growing. Laura had never seen a buffalo. and Pa said it was not likely that she would ever see one. Only a little while before the vast herds of thousands of buffaloes had grazed over this country. They had been all the Indians' cattle, and white men had slaughtered them all. Right up front, right up front. See, people were saying, oh, Laura Ingalls is down on the Indians. Nah, everybody else was horrible to the Indians, the Native Americans in the 1800s. But Laura does this running commentary about how terrible people were treating the Native Americans. Her mother says these terrible things, and she says, no, Ma, and Pa goes, no, actually, no. And she talks about, she doesn't say, oh, there was buffalo, and it was great, because the Indians didn't need them, and we ate them. No, she says the buffalo were the Indians' cattle, and the white men slaughtered them all. She says it right there, she says it. On every side now, the prairie stretched away empty to far, clear skyline. The wind never stopped blowing, waving the tall prairie grasses that had turned brown in the sun. And all the afternoon, while Pa kept driving onward, he was merrily whistling or singing. He's always singing. The song he sang oftenest was, oh, come to this country, and don't you feel alarm, for Uncle Sam's rich enough to give us all a farm. Yeah, right. Even Baby Grace joined in the chorus, though she did not bother to follow the tune. Well, I'm Baby Grace, because I can't follow the tune either. I don't know. Oh, come away, come away. Oh, I think it's the Dixie. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Come away, I say. Oh, come away, come right away. Oh, come to this country and have no fear of harm. Our Uncle Sam is rich enough to give us all a farm. Okay. The sun was lowering in the west when a rider appeared on the prairie behind the wagon. He came following behind, not very fast, but coming a little nearer mile after mile while the sun was slowly sinking. How much farther is it to Silver Lake, Charles? Ma asked. About 10 miles, said Pa. There isn't anybody living nearer, is there? No, said Pa. See, Ma has noticed they're being followed. And Ma is understandably terrified because it's the prairie. And there's everything from Native Americans to horse thieves to murderers to, there was that family in the covered wagon that they found in Kansas, sitting there with no horses, who'd been robbed of everything, including the horses. And so Ma knows they're not good. So she's like, any houses we might possibly be stopping at? But she's not going to say anything like, we're being followed. Ma did not say anything more, neither did anyone else. They kept glancing back at that rider behind them, and each time they looked, he was a little nearer. He was surely following them, and not meaning to overtake them until the sun sank. Gonna wait until dark. The sun was so low that every hollow between the low prairie swells was filled with shadow. Every time that Pa glanced back, his hand made a little motion, slapping the horses with the lines to hurry them. But no team could pull a loaded wagon as fast as a man could ride. The man was so near now that Laura could see 2 pistols in leather holsters on his hips. His hat was pulled low over his eyes, and a red bandana was tied loosely around his neck. Cowboy or gunslinger, we don't know. It's Dakota. Anybody see that show Deadwood? That takes place in South Dakota around this time. So, yikes, it could be absolutely. He could be a sheriff, he could be a cowboy, or he could be a murderer, robber, terrible person from Deadwood. We don't know. Pa had brought his gun west, but it was not in the wagon now. Laura wondered where it was, but she did not ask Pa. She looked back again and saw another rider coming up on a white horse. He wore a red shirt. He and the white horse were far behind and small, but they came fast, galloping. They overtook the first rider, and the 2 came on together. Oh, this doesn't sound good at all. I'll go cookies. They're not too sweet. They're not too salty. They're not. So I'm concerned. Oh dear. They came right on up. Ma said in a low voice, there's 2 of them now, Charles. Mary asked, frightened, what is it, Laura? What's the matter? Pa looked back quickly, and then he was comfortable. Ugh, everything's all right now, he said. That's Big Jerry. Who the heck's Big Jerry? Big Jerry? Who's Big Jerry? Ma asked. He's a half-breed, French and Indian, Pa answered carelessly. Carelessly because that's rather insulting. Okay, so he's a half-breed, because that's not really a nice thing to call someone. But Cher did write a song about half. Remember the Cher song? Half-breed. Cher impersonation. She's no good to walk. I don't know. I don't do Cher. No, since the day I was born. Half-breed. So then we'll have a Cher interlude here. So he just called this guy a half-breed. French and Indian, meaning that he is a Native American and French person, which was quite common because the French settlers, whole section of that country, it's like when you have Eau Claire, Wisconsin, Eau Claire, the French. It's very, very French up around there. So indeed, that is a thing. A lot of the French traders traded with the Indians. Pa answered carelessly, a gambler, and some say a horse thief, but a darn good fella. Pa, again, Pa and his judge of character. Maybe not. He trusts him. He's a horse thief, but he's not like a real horse thief. It's Big Jerry. It's okay. Yeah, Ma's going to have a burr in about 2 minutes here. Oh, no, he's a gambler, and some say a horse thief, but a darn good fellow. Big Jerry won't let anybody waylay us. Well, that's probably true. Let us hope that Big Jerry does not decide to mug you and waylay you. Ma looked at him astonished. The polite way of putting it. Her mouth opened and then it shut. She did not say anything. The riders came up beside the wagon. Pa lifted his hand and said, "Hello, Jerry." "Hello, Ingalls," Big Jerry answered. The other man gave them all a snarling look and went galloping on ahead, but Big Jerry rode along by the wagon. Oh, so the other guy, who's like an actual horse thief and not Big Jerry, their friend, was probably thinking, awesome, Jerry has cornered this unarmed, helpless family and their wagon and horses, and we're going to rob them. And then when Big Jerry starts going, "Hey man, what's up?" realizes that that's not happening and was just now disappointed that he wasn't going to get to pillage these people's possessions and kill them. So yeah, there you go. That's a lovely story. He looked like an Indian. He was tall and big, but not one bit fat, and his thin face was brown. His shirt was flaming red. Oh my, his straight black hair swung against his flat, high-boned cheeks as he rode, and for he wore no hat. And his snow-white horse wore no saddle nor bridle. The horse was free. He could go where he wanted to go, and he wanted to go with Big Jerry wherever Big Jerry wanted to ride. The horse and the man moved together as if they were one animal. So he's very much Native American. He's riding bareback. The horse totally is trained. The horse is with him. He doesn't even have to tell the horse what to do, and he doesn't wear a hat. And but he has a lovely flaming red shirt because he's French. Oui. They were beside the wagon only a moment. Then away they went in the smoothest, prettiest run, down into a little hollow and up and away, straight into the blazing round sun on the far edge of the west. The flaming red shirt and the white horse vanished in the blazing golden light. Laura let out her breath. Oh, Mary! The snow-white horse and the tall brown man, such a black head and such a bright red shirt. The brown prairie all around, and they rode right into the sun as it was going down. They'll go on in the sun around the world. Mary thought a moment, and then she said, "Laura, you know he couldn't ride into the sun. He's just riding along the ground like anybody." "Oh, Mary, stop being so literal all the time, really?" But Laura did not feel that she had told a lie. What she had said was true, too. Somehow that moment when that beautiful free pony and the wild man rode into the sun would last forever. So when Mary has Laura seeing for, she's looking for real literal. There's a horse, there's a guy, there's a thing, whereas Laura's doing the writer thing. And it's amazing, Mary, and the stars are falling, and he's riding into the sun. And Mary's like, yeah, enough with the poetry. What's happening? So they're going to fight about this for sure. Well, so Ma can't be happy about this at all. Ma, again, still feared that the other man might be lying in wait to rob them, but Pa told her, "Don't worry, Big Jerry's gone ahead to find him and stay with him till we get into camp. Jerry'll see that nobody molests us." Oh my God, that's what he just said. Pa just said they have 4 children. They have Mary and Laura and Gary and Grace in the wagon, and Pa just did use, well, molest means to disturb, annoy, attack in any way, generally. But Pa did just say, "Don't worry, no one will molest us." Well, gosh, Pa, let's hope. Yikes! Yikes. So these guys, he's admitting that the other guy is absolutely a mugger, a robber. And that Jerry is occasionally a robber. And that, no, it's okay because we know him. He's the mugger we're friends with. And he's going to tell the other mugger not to mug us when we get to the dark alley. Okay. Whatever you say, Pa. Sounds terrifying. So he thinks it's just great. No one will molest us. Ma looked back to see that her girls were all right, and she held Grace snugly on her lap. She did not say anything, because nothing she could say would make any difference. But Laura knew that Ma had never wanted to leave Plum Creek, and did not like to be here now. She did not like traveling in that lonely country with night coming on, and such men riding the prairie. I'm kind of with Ma on this one. We don't know these people. The wild calls of birds came down from the fading sky. More and more dark lines streaked the pale blue air overhead, straight lines of wild ducks, and long flying wedges of wild geese. The leaders called to their flocks behind them, and each bird answered in turn. The whole sky twanged. Okay, we did this in another chapter, and yes, we have to do it again, because it's ducks and geese. Okay, flying in. Honk, 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 quack, quack, quack. Oh, excuse me, there's an N in it. Laura spells quack. Quank, quank. It's very French. Quank. So, honk, 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 clank, crank, clank. This is hysterical. They're flying low, said Pa, settling down for the night on the lakes. There were lakes ahead. A thin silvery line at the very edge of the sky was Silver Lake, and little glimmers south of it were Twin Lakes, Henry and Thompson. A wee dark blob between them was the Lone Tree. Pa said it was a big cottonwood, the only tree to be seen between the Big Sioux River and the Jim. It grew on a little rise of ground no wider than a road between the Twin Lakes, and it grew big because its roots could reach water. We'll get some seeds from it to plant on our homestead, Pa said. You can't see Spirit Lake from here. It's 9 miles northwest of Silver Lake. You see, Caroline, what fine hunting country this is. Plenty of water and good feeding ground for wild fowl. Yes, Charles, I see, said Ma. She's still mad about the muggers that he's befriended. The sun sank, a ball of pulsing liquid light. Ooh, it sank in clouds of crimson and silver. Cold purple shadows rose in the east, crept slowly across the prairie, then rose in heights, on heights of darkness, from which the stars swung, low and bright. And I bet she did not tell Mary that, because Mary would have said, no, Laura, that's not happening. The stars aren't swinging. The wind, which all day long had blown strongly, dropped low with the sun, and went whispering among the tall grasses. The earth seemed to lie, breathing softly under the summer night. Pa drove on and on beneath the low stars. The horses' feet went softly thump-thumping on the grassy ground. Far, far ahead, a few tiny lights pricked through the dark. They were the lights of Silver Lake Camp. She's come to Silver Lake. Don't need to see the trail for these next 8 miles, Pa told Ma. All a man's got to do is keep driving toward the lights. There's nothing between us and camp but smooth prairie and air. Laura was tired and chilly. The lights were far away. They might be stars after all. The whole night was a glittering of stars. Close overhead and down on all sides, great stars glittered in patterns on the dark. The tall grass rustled against the turning wagon wheels. It kept on rustling against the wheels that kept on turning. Suddenly, Laura's eyes jerked open. There was an open doorway and light streaming out. Yay! And in the dazzle of the lamplight, Uncle Henry was coming, laughing. So this must be Uncle Henry's house in the big woods when Laura was little, for that's where Uncle Henry was. She's like, how did we get back to Wisconsin? I don't know. Where am I? It's long. I'm so confused. She's become confused again about where she is. But it's very pretty there. But yes, there's like nothing. Silver Lake. Like silver. You know we have a Silver Lake here in Los Angeles. That's a place here. Those of you who live in California or Los Angeles are going, yeah, Silver Lake. But for those of you who don't live in like LA, there is a whole neighborhood. It's almost a whole city. A neighborhood, a part of Los Angeles called Silver Lake. And there is, in fact, a lake, Silver Lake. And very pretty, very pretty. It's a little tiny lake. In many places, you would say that is a pond. That is not a lake. It's a little tiny lake. But it's really pretty, and people go hiking around the lake. There's a path and a thing. And there is a whole town around it, the hills up above, and it's quite the area. It's very fancy. There's very fancy parts up in the hills, and then there's the regular apartments down below. And there's many good restaurants and nightclubs and things. I have performed. Casita del Campo is an amazing Mexican restaurant with a nightclub in the basement, and you betcha, I have performed there. I've done my show. I've performed with other people. I've done things in the basement of the fabulous Casita del Campo, which also has like amazing Mexican food. So Silver Lake is a fabulous place. I have many friends who live in Silver Lake. Someone says, is it near Toluca Lake? It is not. I mean, it's not horribly far. Like, okay, if I was in Silver Lake and I went up, I could get on the 2, and then I'd have to go over a bit. I'd have to go west. So half an hour, give or take. But yeah, Toluca Lake is a similar thing over here, and Silver Lake is over there. But indeed, I think I can get to Silver Lake faster from my house than I can to Toluca Lake. But there you go, so Silver Lake, Toluca Lake. We have lakes. We have many pretty things in LA. It's a lovely place, really it is. Oh my, so she's like, am I in Wisconsin? What's happening? Why is Uncle Henry here? I don't know. Henry, Ma exclaimed. It's a surprise, Caroline, Pa sang out. I thought I wouldn't tell you that Henry's out here. I declare, it takes my breath. I am so surprised, said Ma. And then a big man was laughing up at them, and he was Cousin Charlie. Oh, that awful boy, that terrible kid. Poor Cousin Charlie was like, ugh, Charlie. And now he's back. He was the big boy who had bothered Uncle Henry and Pa in the oat field and been stung by thousands of yellow jackets. Murder hornets. Hello, Half Pint. Hello, Mary. And here's baby Carrie, a big girl now. Not the baby any longer, huh? Cousin Charlie helped them down from the wagon, while Uncle Henry took Grace and Pa helped Ma over the wheel. And here came Cousin Louisa, bustling and talking and herding them all into the shanty. Well, Cousin Charlie, they mentioned Cousin Charlie grew up and is like a nice person now. Which I guess he did. They say he learned his lesson when he was skirting around and he got stung by the yellow jackets. They're saying, well, that'll teach him. And apparently, someone just said, is she cousins with Scarlett O'Hara? I declare. I wonder, because, no, hoop skirts. They had hoop skirts, and they're singing all this, like, Johnny Comes Marching Home stuff, and Civil War tunes, and a lot of them are like, they're singing, Dixie, and she got the hoop skirts, and now she's, I declare. I'm starting to wonder, there's some Southern thing happening. I have to go read up on the previous generations of Ingalls and go, somebody going through Georgia in this story? I'm confused. Well, it takes my breath. I'm so surprised. I declare, she says. Well, so they get out of the wagon, and Cousin Louise and Charlie were both grown up now. They were keeping the boarding shanty, cooking for the men who were working on the grade. But the men had eaten supper long ago, and now they were all sleeping in the bunkhouses. Cousin Louisa talked about all this while she dished up the supper she'd been keeping hot on the stove. After supper, Uncle Henry lighted a lantern and led the way to a shanty the men had built for Pa. It's all new lumber, Caroline, fresh and clean as a whistle, Uncle Henry said, holding up the lantern so they could see the new board walls and the bunks built up against them. There was a bunk on one side for Ma and Pa, on the other side 2 narrow bunks, one above the other, for Mary and Laura and Carrie and Grace. The beds were already spread in the bunks. Cousin Louisa had seen to that. In no time at all, Laura and Mary were cuddled on the rustling fresh hay mattresses with the sheet and quilts drawn up to their noses, and Pa blew out the lantern. Aw, that's 1 bed there, and then 2 beds. It's 6 people. He gave them like 2.5 beds. I'm like, really? Really? Well, I say, yeah, the bunkhouse. When you go to South Dakota, if you go to De Smet, South Dakota, which is where they spent, the Ingalls lived the longest, and in fact, there's a cemetery where, ta-da, Charles and Caroline, the whole family, really, except Laura and Almanzo, who are in Missouri, they're all buried there. And there's like, and here's the store that Pa ran, and here's the surveyor's house, and there's some of the buildings that they lived in actually are still intact and have been preserved and fixed up and whatnot in De Smet, South Dakota. Same. Like this one, yeah. Oh. Alright, so not Charles. It's not Charles. Maybe it's her side. I don't know. Something. Or someone said Scottish. That Scottish settlers. That's where a lot of that southern high-class stuff came from them. Makes it. Silver Lake. We're going to Silver Lake. Wow, it's a big spread out thing of horses. The sun had not yet risen next morning when Laura let down the pail into the shallow well by Silver Lake. Oh, they have a well, so they're very civilized. Beyond the lake's eastern shore, the pale sky was bordered with bands of crimson and gold. She loves her sunrises and her sunsets. She describes sunrises and sunsets in great detail every time. It's very nice. Their brightness stretched around the south shore and shone on the high banks that stood up from the water in the east and the north. Night was still shadowy in the northwest, but Silver Lake lay like a sheet of silver in its setting of tall wild grasses. That's probably why it got named that. Ducks quacked among the thick grasses to the southwest. Quack, 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 quank, quank. Where the big slough began. Now, it's at the big slough, the big slough, or the big slough? I have no idea. I'm going to go with slough. S-L-O-U-G-H. It could be the big slough, but I'm sure it's the big slough. There you go. Screaming gulls flew over the lake, beating against the dawn wind. A wild goose rose from the water with a ringing call. Honk, honk. And one after another, the birds of his flock answered him as they rose and followed. Honk, honk, honk. The great triangle of wild geese flew with a beating of strong wings into the glory of the sunrise. Shafts of golden light shot higher and higher in the eastern sky until their brightness touched the water and was reflected there. Then the sun, a golden ball, rolled over the eastern edge of the world. Laura breathed a long breath. Then hurriedly, she pulled up the pail of water, and carrying it, she hurried back towards the shanty. The new shanty stood alone by the lake shore, south of the cluster of shanties that was the graders' camp. It shone yellow in the sunshine, a little house almost lost in the grasses, and its little roof sloped all one way as if it were only half a roof. "We have been waiting for the water, Laura," Ma said when Laura went in. But you see, Laura stops to watch the sunrise. That's her thing. And she says, "Oh, but Ma, the sunrise!" "You should have seen the sunrise," Laura exclaimed. "I just had to watch it." She began quickly to help Ma get breakfast, and while she hurried, she told how the sun came up beyond Silver Lake, flooding the sky with wonderful colors, while the flocks of wild geese flew dark against them. How thousands of wild ducks almost covered the water, and gulls flew screaming against the wind above it. "I heard them," Mary said. "Such a clamoring of wild birds. It was like bedlam. And now I see it all. You make pictures when you talk, Laura." Okay, finally, Mary figures it out that Laura's trying to paint a picture here. She's been complaining that she's not more literal, but and she's not overly fond, apparently, of the birds, like in bedlam. Ma smiled at Laura too, but she only said, "Well, all girls, we have a busy day before us," and she laid out their work. Yep, they got there. They're going to work. Everything must be unpacked and the shanty made tidy before noon. Cousin Louise's beds must be aired and returned, and Ma's ticking mattresses stuffed with fresh, clean hay. Well, they borrowed the bedding for last night. They take it back. Meanwhile, from the company store, Ma brought yards of bright-figured calico for curtains. She made a curtain, and they hung it across the shanty, shutting the bunks in behind it. She's like, "Yeah, this open plan. No, we're making a bedroom." Yeah. She's going to clean that mess up. Then she made another curtain and hung it between the bunks, so there were 2 bedrooms, one for her and Pa, the other for the girls. Yeah, she's like, "This is not a bunkhouse. This is Mommy and Daddy's room, and this is your room if I have to build it with a blanket and a curtain." So yeah, Ma's laying down the law here. They're not all going to sleep like animals in one room. She's like, "No, we did that. We did that already, the one-room thing. Not happening." The shanty was so small that the curtains touched the bunks. And when the bunks were made up with Ma's mattress and feather beds and patchwork quilts, it all looked fresh and bright and snug. So yeah, the bunks right now, it's like a train. Like those sleeping compartments where you can open the curtains and climb in your little bed. So there you go. Then, in front of the curtain was the room to live in. It was very small, and with a cook stove at the end by the door. Ma and Laura placed the drop-leaf table against the side wall before the open front door. Mary's rocking chair and Ma's they put on the other side of the room. The floor was bare ground with humps of obstinate grass roots in it, but they swept it clean. Roots. The wind blew softly in from the open doorway, and the railroad shanty was very pleasant and homelike. "This is another kind of little house with only half a roof and no window," said Ma. "But it's a tight roof, and we don't need a window. So much air and light come through the doorway. When Pa came to dinner, he was pleased to see everything so nicely settled and arranged. He tweaked Carrie's ear and swung Grace up in his hands. He could not toss her under the lower bed. Like, wait, splat! Oh, sorry, baby Grace. Boom. Can't toss the child in the air because the roof's like, oh well. But where's the China shepherdess, Caroline? He asked. It's not missing, is it? Because this made it through. How many? In the 5th book, she still got that thing. I haven't unpacked the shepherdess, Charles, said Ma. We aren't living here. We're only staying till you get your homestead. She's like, this is not a real house, and I am not unpacking my shepherdess in this trashy little thing with the curtains in front of the beds. You get me a real house, I'll unpack the shepherdess. She may have a point. I mean, they're right in a reeling camp. Could be. Pa laughed. I've got plenty of time to pick the right one, too. Oh, he's taking his time again. Look at all this great prairie with nobody on it but the railroad graders, and they'll go away before winter comes. We can just about take our pick of the land. After dinner, Laura said, Mary and I are going to take a walk and look at the camp and the lake and everything. She took the water pail and ran out bareheaded to get fresh water from the well for dinner. The wind was blowing steady and strong. Not a cloud was in the huge sky, and far and wide on the immense land there was nothing but shimmering light passing over the grasses. And downwind came the sound of many men's voices singing. The teams were coming into camp in a long, dark, snake-like line as they came over the prairie, horses plodding side by side in their harness, and men marching, bareheaded and bare-armed, brown-skinned in their striped blue and white shirts and gray shirts and plain blue shirts, and all of them were singing the same song. Is it I've been working on the railroad? Because I think it should be I've been working on the railroad. They were like a little army coming across the vast land under the enormous empty sky, and the song was their banner. Laura stood in the strong wind, looking and listening till the last of the column came into the crowd that gathered and spread around the camp's low shanties, and the song blurred into the sound of all their hearty voices. Then she remembered the water pail in her hand, because she totally forgot again. She filled it from the well as quickly as she could and ran back, slopping water on her bare legs in a hurry. I just had to watch the teams coming into camp, she panted. So many of them, Pa, and all the men were singing. Now remember, I said a couple of books ago, it's like Laura's only met 12 people, and that includes her direct family members. So it was only in all the way up to Little House in the Prairie in Kansas that she started actually meeting other humans she was not related to. That's when she first saw Store. That's when she first met cowboys and Indians and Mr. Edwards and all this family down the road, the Scots. And every time she was like, because literally she knew Mom and Pa and her sisters, and she knew her grandma and grandpa and like the 3 or 4 people from the big ones. She knew nobody. So now she's meeting an entire team of railroad workers. So that she knows everybody. So she went from completely sheltered to living in a railroad camp. So shock. She's being shocked, this poor child. So she comes in ranting about all these men. Now, flutter budget, catch your breath. Pa laughed at her. 50 teams and 75 or 80 men are only a small camp. You ought to see the Stebbins camp way west of here. 200 men and teams, according. Charles, Ma said. Usually, everyone knew what Ma meant when she said in her gentle way, Charles. But this time, Laura and Carrie and Pa all looked at her wondering. Ma shook her head just the least bit at Pa. Oh, it's one of those stories. Ma's going, Charles, ixnay on the amp cake. Don't try to start the children. So something's up. Ma's like, no. Don't talk about how many men are in the camp. Ma shook her head. Pa looked straight at Laura and said, you girls keep away from the camp. When you go walking, don't go near where the men are working, and you be sure you're back here before they come in for the night. There's all kinds of rough men working on the grade, and they use rough language, and the less you see or hear of them, the better. Now remember, Laura, and you too, Carrie. Pa's face was very serious. Yes, Pa, Laura promised, and Carrie almost whispered, yes, Pa. Carrie's eyes were large and frightened. She did not want to hear rough language, whatever rough language might be. Laura would have liked to hear some just once. But of course, she must obey Pa. That Laura. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Someone's mentioned, because Laura later wrote about this camp and in her grown-up book. She was going to do her grown-up autobiography, which didn't sell, and so she wound up doing these. But she later wrote about, okay, here's what was actually going on in the railroad camp. It's a railroad camp. And yeah, did you see Deadwood? Yeah. You've seen westerns that aren't Little House on the Prairie. You've seen what the guys in the railroad camp. So yes, as someone mentioned, they were indeed using the outdoor restroom. They weren't just bare-armed or bare-headed. They were bare-chested, possibly bare something else, and rough language. And Laura's like, rough language? Ooh, what's that? Can I hear? She's totally ready to go hang out with the railroad men. And her little crazy friend is like, I'm going to marry a railroad man. Yeah. She's totally ready to go hang out with crazy, drunken railroad men and hear rough language, which is why they have to lock her in the house. And Ma's going, no, Pa, the camp, not going to the camp, no, because she knows it's insanely dangerous for little tiny pretty girls. Mm-hmm. So they don't go. So that afternoon, when they set out for their walk, they went away from the shanties. They set out along lakeshore toward the big slough. Big slough. We'll go with that. The lake lay at their left, shimmering in the sunshine. Little silvery waves rose and fell and lapped upon the shore as the wind ruffled the blue water. The shore was low but firm and dry, with little grasses growing to the water's edge. Along the glittering lake, Laura could see the east bank and the south bank, rising up as tall as she was. A little slough came into the lake from the northwest, and the big slough went on toward the southwest in a long curve of tall, wide grasses. It's like a little stream. It's not quite a stream or a river or a creek, so it's a slough. There you go. Laura and Mary and Carrie walked slowly along the green shore by the rippling silver-blue water toward the wild, big slough. The grasses were warm and soft to their feet. The wind blew their flapping skirts tight against their bare legs and ruffled Laura's hair. Mary's sunbonnet and Carrie's were tied firmly under their chins, but Laura swung hers by the string. La 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 la. Of course she did. Millions of rustling grass blades made one murmuring sound, and thousands of wild ducks and geese, and herons and cranes and pelicans were talking sharply and brassy in the wind. Herons and cranes. Have you seen a heron? I am followed by herons. Did you know that? Mm-hmm. No, this is like totally crazy. I'm like followed by herons. I say it's like what people say, it's your spirit animal. I don't know. All I know is it's the weirdest thing. I will be somewhere where there's no water and there should not be a heron or an ibis. And I'll suddenly go, oh, hi. Why is there a heron? There was a snowy egret on my roof. It was very windy. To be fair, it was very windy. We're not near a lake, but there's a lake like way up that way, and it was windy. And Hanson Dam, I think there's water, and this thing was clearly lost. But there was a snowy egret on my roof. I'm like, why are you there? And the number of times I'm like driving along, and like suddenly it's like a heron. So yes, Silver Lake in LA, absolutely herons, egrets, and cranes, the whole bit. So yes, herons and cranes are following me. It's very strange. So I like reading about those. So the many birds, and they were talking, so honk, honk, quack, 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 and whatever herons say. All those birds were feeding among the grasses of the sloughs. They rose on flapping wings and settled again, crying news to each other and talking among themselves, among the grasses, and eating busily of grass roots and tender water plants and little fishes. The lake shore went lower and lower toward Big Slough until really there was no shore. The lake melted into the slough, making small ponds surrounded by the harsh, rank slough grass that stood 5 and 6 feet tall. Yeah, the slough is kind of all reeds and stuff and everything. Little ponds glimmered between the grasses, and on the water the wild birds were thick. As Laura and Carrie pushed into the slough grasses, suddenly harsh wings ripped upward and round eyes glittered. Oh no! The whole air exploded in a noise of squawking, quacking, and quonking. Quack, quack, quonk, quonk. Quack, quack, quonk, quonk, quack. Flattening their webbed feet under their tails, ducks and geese sped over the grass tops and curved down into the next pond. Laura and Carrie stood still. The coarse, streamed slough grass rose above their heads and made a rough sound in the wind. Their bare feet sank slowly into ooze. Oh, the ground is all soft, Mary said, turning back quickly. She did not like mud on her feet. Go back, Carrie, Laura cried. You'll mire down. You'll mire down. The lake is in here among the grasses. It's quicksand. The soft, cool mud sucked around her ankles as she stood, and before her the little ponds glimmered along the tall grasses. She wanted to go on and on into the slough among the wild birds, but she could not leave Mary and Carrie. So she turned back with them to the hard, higher prairie, where the waist-high grasses were nodding and bending in the wind, and the short, curly buffalo grass grew in patches. Yeah, she was going to keep going like into quicksand and into the lake and quack, 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 but it's like, no, you have to stay with the girls. Along the edge of the slough, they picked flaming red tiger lilies, pretty. And on higher ground, they gathered long branching stems of purple buffalo bean pods. I am not familiar with purple buffalo bean pods. Are they pretty? Can you eat those? I don't know. Grasshoppers flew up like spray before their feet in the grasses. All kinds of little birds fluttered and flew and twittered, balancing in the wind on the tall bending grass stems. And prairie hens scuttled everywhere. Oh, what a wild, beautiful prairie, Mary sighed with happiness. Laura, have you got your sunbonnet on? Hint, she doesn't. Guiltily, Laura pulled up her sunbonnet from where it hung by its strings down her back. Yes, Mary, she said. Well, here, let me put this on because I'm totally like lying. That Laura, she's like, she can't see me. I won't wear my sunbonnet. Mary laughed. You just now put it on. I heard you. It was late afternoon when they turned back. The little shanty, with its roof slanting all one way, stood all by itself and small at the edge of Silver Lake. Tiny in the doorway, Ma shaded her eyes with her hand to look for them, and they waved to her. They could see the whole camp scattered along the lake shore north of the shanty. First there was the store, where Pa was working with the big feed store behind it. Then the stable for the work teams. The stable was built into the swell of the prairie, and its roof was thatched with slough grass. Beyond it was the long, low bunkhouse where the men slept, and still farther away was Cousin Louisa's long boarding house shanty, with supper smoke already rising from its stovepipe. Then, for the first time, Laura saw a house, a real house, standing all by itself on the lake's northern shore. I wonder what that house can be and who lives there, she said. It isn't a homestead because there's no stable and no land plowed. She told Mary all that she saw, and Mary said, what a pretty place it is, with the clean new shanties and the grass and the water. There's no use wondering about that house. We can ask Pa about it. Here comes another flock of wild ducks. Quank, quank. Flock after flock of ducks and long lines of wild geese were coming down from the sky, settling to stay all night on the lake. And the men were making a racket of voices as they came from their work. In the shanty's doorway again, Ma waited till they reached her, wind-blown and full of fresh air and sunshine, bringing her their armfuls of tiger lilies and purple bean pods. Then Carrie put the big bouquet in a pitcher of water while Laura set the table for supper. Mary sat in her rocking chair with Grace in her lap and told her about the ducks quanking, quacking, quacking in the big slough and the great flocks of wild geese going to sleep on the lake. Aww, that's pretty good. That's very good. That's great. Now let's see here. Oh, the next chapter is horse thieves. Oh dear, yes, things get rough. And then it's the wonderful afternoon, so things get better. I don't know. But horse thieves, apparently, maybe some of Big Jerry's uncivilized friends are coming to visit. I don't know. Oh, good. Oh, so cookies, I'm telling you. So, tomorrow. Tomorrow is Saturday. Now, I think I will be able to remember last Saturday. I could not do a reading because we had sound check and we had the show. But the show was at like 5 o'clock because we're doing the 5 o'clock LA time, 8 o'clock New York time. So we were doing tech and getting ready like right in the middle of the afternoon. Now, tomorrow, the show isn't until 8 o'clock my time. And we'll do probably sound check in the afternoon. So I might be able to read the Horse Thieves chapter. Sunday, though, I have a bunch of interviews and stuff. Sunday. So Sunday, I'm going to be exhausted. maybe I'll do it in the morning. We'll do a Sunday morning. Or maybe I can talk someone, like Baby Grace. Because Baby Grace is in here. I see if I can't talk somebody into reading on Sunday. But I should be able to read a short one tomorrow. And then, of course, the show at 8 o'clock. Yay! Is it the same material? Yes, we'll probably have some different questions because I have the question and answer section. I have a couple of different questions. We'll try to mix it up a little. But generally, it's for people like missed last week. But it'll be fun. You see it again. It's live. So who knows? Who knows what will happen? So I'm doing that. And I got to get about it and get things in the mail and get things done for tomorrow. But this is awesome. This is so much fun. And so take care and wash your little hands. Wash your hands. And really, you just get the Toll House chocolate chips in the store, and it says right on the package. It's 2 1/4 cups of flour, 2 eggs, blah, 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 3/4 cup each, brown sugar, white. It's really easy. You don't even, and you know how they can't get yeast in the stores? They can't get baking soda. It's baking soda. It's so easy. So you can do that and make chocolate chip cookies, and I'll see you tomorrow.